Hello, this is Nikisha Brown, and I'm going to attempt to do my discussion via video. I'm going from case study 10.2, Nike's Boys Club Culture, on page 353. And I am going to answer more than one question for extra credit. So I'm just going to go through them all. Discussion probes. How should HR departments respond to complaints like those made at Nike? I think HR need to take every complaint seriously, first of all. A lot of times, the complaint doesn't get past the first person you talk to, either because the person being complained on is in position of power, an important person. They might be a productive member of the team, maybe the best sales, or a valuable asset in another way. So a lot of time HR doesn't want to rock the boat. A lot of times they keep the complaints off the record. They keep it informal. So if it does escalate later on, there's no paper trail. When complaints were made that women were being discriminated against in everyday practices, harassed, denied promotions, I think those complaints should have been taken very seriously. I think maybe you need an outside entity to come in. Maybe every big corporation needs to hire like an outside auditor or compliance person or customer satisfaction, not customer, but like employee relations person other than HR, because HR's primary interest is the company. Even though they say they're there for the people, I find that they're going to take care of self first. What elements of an unhealthy ethical climate do you see at Nike? Okay, where do we start? First of all, even in the title, Nike's Boys Club Culture, that lets you know, that sets the tone that there's sexism on a minimal level, whether from the co-workers, but usually Boys Club Culture goes higher than just the line staff. It's usually supervisors, executives, CEOs. Now, there are times that the head CEO and the board don't know what's going on, and they do act once they find out. However, that's kind of complacency or naivety for them to not look into it and know what's going on in their company. And a lot of times they don't know. I think in this case, the biggest thing was qualified women were denied positions. So it's not only they were denied promotions against other qualified men, meaning like if there's 10 qualified people, 3 women get the job and 7 men. But no, they were denied positions to men who were not even qualified for the positions. So that's an extreme explicit bias to me. Because how can you justify giving a position to a person who doesn't even qualify for it when you had qualified women there? I know they mentioned sexism, ageism. A lot of companies back in the day, I don't know the climate now in 2020, but I know like 10 years ago, they didn't want to hire women because they assumed that women were going to always have issues with babysitting, that they were going to have to leave early, they were going to have childcare issues, things that do happen to women, but they happen to all parents. And because a woman is usually the primary caregiver, even in a 2-parent household, they're the ones discriminated against at work. On the opposite side of it, women and their issues are not taken in consideration when being chosen hours to work, mandatory overtime, being on call, having to take retreats out of town, not considering that you may not have anybody else to stay home with your kids. I remember once working for my job in San Francisco. My shift was 11:30 to 8:30 at night. I didn't have a car at the time. I lived in Richmond. I would get to the BART at a time where I just missed my BART, my bus. So I'd have to wait at Del Norte 45 minutes for the next bus. And I'd get home almost at 11 o'clock. And once I became a union rep, we fought to change the time of our business operations, and they allowed us to close 30 minutes earlier. By closing at 8, I could get home by 9:30, 9:45. That made a big difference. But it wasn't until another man complained that he would miss his bus as well going to Concord and have to work a mile. One day he was sick, he couldn't come in. Why can't you come in? I'm tired. I walked a mile last night. Then the policy got changed. So this still goes on in many companies. So this is just one way Nike uh, kept perpetuating a negative culture because they ignored the complaints. They refused to consider what people were bringing to them. Um, it was okay for men to make comments and jokes referring to women's anatomy, their body parts. Men bringing up condoms. I mean, that's inappropriate. That's suggestive. That's aggressive, and making women feel like, if we don't accept these advances, we might lose our job, or it could get turned on us. So Nike definitely had an unethical climate from the bottom all the way up to the top, if not just for the ignorance of the top. And number 3, what additional steps should Nike take to change its culture? Nike should keep a progressive and current and interactive policy of touching in, having checks and balances. Talk to your line staff. Have retreats. Have trainings throughout the year, not just one time. Get feedback. Have open doors for honest communication. Maybe have a survey where people can anonymously bring up specific issues. So no, it's not a bitch fest, but it's really giving you examples of things that are going on. So then the executives or the board can sit back and analyze it, and they can compare all the feedback they're getting from everyone else. And then that way you can decipher, oh, is this just a disgruntled employee, or these are things that we really need to take into consideration. Although in the court of law, you should be presumed innocent until proven guilty, I feel like in a company, any accusation should at least be considered, no matter if you don't believe it's true or you don't think it's the character of the person being accused. You should at least take each one neutrally in consideration, which is why I go back to saying there should be an outside company or department who does this, because women lie too. People do lie. People date at work, which also perpetuates the sexism and inequality, because, hey, if someone gets a promotion, is it because they're dating a boss? Is it because the boss likes her? So I think there should even be a policy on dating, because, you guys can be line staff in different departments. What if one of you get a promotion and because he becomes the other boss, but you guys been together for 2 years and you have feelings for each other? Or if it's a strict no dating policy, that causes a lot of people to sneak around, which perpetuates dishonesty. It goes against integrity. It increases stress because you're afraid of getting caught at work. I think sometimes when people are dating, whether quietly or openly, the person in charge might give the lower person favors, but it can also be the other way around. They might reprimand them more or stay harder on them at work because they want to give the image and the portrayal that they're being fair. Number 4, how should the company measure its progress in making cultural change? This one was a tough one for me. How do you measure your progress? I mean, you can look at your retention. How often do customers stay, do employees stay ever since we made this big change? Are we having a big turnover like we had before? Or are we keeping employees longer? When someone gives notice that they're leaving, have an exit interview with them, but not the day they're leaving, before the day they're leaving, so that it's not just a hurry up, get it out the way. It's not just we're going through the motions, but sit and hear the reason why they're leaving in a nice, safe, friendly space. So 1, you can learn something, and 2, that they can walk away feeling like even though they're no longer with the company, they're still enhancing the company. Still do surveys. I don't know whether you want to say quarterly, biannually, where people are checking bubbles to really say things they feel need improvement. I think if it's anonymous, people are more likely to freely say how they feel. However, you can't really follow up with them to get specific suggestions on what can be changed. A lot of times when we complain, we just complain about the problem, but we have no solution. Or we're so caught up on how it affects us personally that we don't look at, well, what would you do different? Is it feasible? What's the logistics around it? I think they should measure the progress by just analyzing their employees' behavior, their attitudes, how happy everyone seems or feels. You know, if we're having a Christmas party or a barbecue or optional things, how many people participate when it's optional as opposed to when they're forced? How many people want to interact outside of work? You can kind of have interdepartmental meetings where people can freely give feedback, where it's a safe space and truly make it safe. Maybe have an outside person facilitate the meeting, meaning someone from a different department, so that you do not feel that you're intimidated if you have a negative thing to say. Because sometimes in these meetings, these supervisors want you there and they pretend like they want your feedback, but they kind of bite your head off after you give your opinion. Or you have to walk around for a few days later walking on eggshells because you feel like you're going to be retaliated against. Number 5, do you think Nike's culture has hindered its ability to market to women? Yes and no. I think, of course, they have, because women who work there have friends, they have family, they share their experiences at work. With the internet and with Facebook and social media, there's blogs, there's forums, there's places where people can speak on companies, there's Yelp. And so I'm pretty sure that women has heard of the discrimination that their female employees go through at work. You also probably can review the discrepancies in income between what the male people make and the female workers make. Look at the ads for the athletes. Which athletes get promoted with the biggest contracts, the biggest campaigns? Does Kobe Bryant, when he was alive, did he make more money for Nike than, I don't know, one of the female athletes, Serena Williams? How long did it take for her to make a proportion of what the male tennis players make? So women probably were aware of these disparities in the culture at Nike. So I definitely feel like it has hindered its ability to market to women. Now that the turnover has happened, I'm pretty sure that it has gotten better. But the thing is, who knows of the turnover? I didn't know what was going on at Nike. This is one company I hadn't heard of. I don't really buy sports apparel to begin with. I'm not surprised to hear about the culture with women, because it's like this in a lot of companies. But it also could be that women don't want to spend as much money on the gear. And that is kind of sexist for me to say, and kind of like a stereotype. But if a woman is running a household and she's the primary person responsible for a kid, again, even in a two-parent situation, if the husband doesn't live in the house with the woman, the husband is not bearing the biggest responsibility of raising the kids. So a woman might be more prone to be on a budget, more prone to say, I'm not going to spend $200 for some Jordans when I can take you over here and spend $100 for something else. Where men do tend to associate their toys and their gadgets with their malehood. That has been proven. Sports and big trophies and big names, big championships, where women might not value it as much as men, so therefore they don't see the importance of purchasing these expensive items as often. But I think there's probably some cases in which it did change women's view on Nike. Again, for those who know what happened, because the company came in and did a quick restructuring from the bottom to the top. Now, how much of it was him doing it because he had to save face, and how much of it was he was truly appalled by what happened and he wanted to clean up his company? Only the people in the inner circle know. But as far as it being a male-dominated company, it's like kind of once you get that jacket in your name, you get that reputation. For instance, hey, Denny's got the reputation of being racist. You can't take that out of some people's minds. So it probably will take more time. Nike will probably have to do more. Summing all 5 questions together. Yes, Nike was good once they recognize a problem. You can't change the past, you can only go forward. So going forward, restructuring, but you have to keep it going. It can't be a one-time or two-time thing. Look at your numbers and see how many women executives you have. See how often women are promoted versus men. Make sure they take notes. Make sure there's documentation on when you pick someone who gets a second or third interview. Why? Did they not interview well, or was they not qualified? Was she great on paper, but she was in her 50s or 60s? I think Nike should have a whole department that continues to monitor and weigh and evaluate what's working and what's not working. And change who you're asking. Because if you're only asking the leaders, you're going to get a swayed answer on what's really going on. If you only ask an line staff, of course, you might get more of a bitch fest. You might get more of the negativity from someone who's upset they don't make as much. They have to work longer. They see the executives come in with their big cars and their parking spots. Get that person in the middle. You might get someone who's very ambitious, but you might get someone who likes the company. They're content where they are and where they make. The bottom line is you have to keep moving. You have to keep evolving. Keep the core things that work, but change what doesn't work. You have to change with the time. Women are not going anywhere. Women are just as smart, just as educated. So they want the same things. Thank you. Peace.